All right, sixth grade students. Today we're going to be talking about the early humans, and I included Sherman and Mr. Peabody here to kind of take us through our guide. No, I'm not going to try an impersonation of these guys. They're phenomenal characters already. I don't need to try to sound like them. But let's talk a little bit today about the early humans. So, archaeologists have discovered evidence of early humans throughout the world, including some of these main continents: Europe and Asia and Africa and Australia. Today we're going to talk about the earliest of archaeology that we'll study in this class, and that's the Paleolithic era. The Paleolithic era is known as a time period where people were nomadic. And the reason they were so nomadic was because hunting was how they got their food. They were constantly on the move as they would chase a herd or follow a herd, sometimes for days, weeks, or months. They would have to, keep up with the herd. If the herd left, it was basically like their fast food restaurant or their grocery store going away. We call the people of the Paleolithic era nomadic, meaning they traveled, but we also call them hunter-gatherer societies. Now, they weren't big into technology, they weren't big into tools yet, but one thing did come along that helped them out greatly. Obviously, they did not invent fire, but the discovery of fire was a big deal. Once fire had been discovered, they started to realize, hey, our food tastes a lot better when we cook it, and it's not a raw meal. Well, so as the early humans started to use fire for defense from other animals that would attack them, to heat themselves at night in cold months, because keep in mind, we're talking Ice Age for much of the planet at this time. And also, what we find is that as they started to heat their food, we started to see an increase in brain size. And it was this increase in brain size because the body's stomach didn't have to work as hard to digest the raw foods. So the body's stomach organs started to shrink. Blood began to flow a little bit better to other areas. The brain began to increase. And you can see over time, we have this increase of brain capacity, which leads us into the Neolithic age. Neolithic, a little bit different than Paleolithic because man starts to domesticate animals, including the canine or the dog. If you have a dog at home, you can thank the Neolithic early humans for figuring out how to make dog friend and not foe. They become farmers. That's what agriculture means. And it's through this time period, this Neolithic time period, that growing things on a farm, they started to say, you know what, we can settle here. We can domesticate the animals here. They started to build fences to keep some of the larger animals fenced in. They started to grow fruits and vegetables to sustain their food source. And it began a huge shift and change to what we now know as civilizations. Along comes technology like metallurgy. And what we know today as technology may look something like this, but technology of the early humans looked more like this. The early humans, as their brains began to increase in size due to evolution, but also due to the increase in cooked foods, which produce proteins to help them, they started to understand how to use technology. Now, we see technology like this today, but to them it looked like that. And here's why. A great definition for technology is tools that can help make our life a little bit easier. All right, so on Wednesday in class, we're going to spend some time looking at the difference between the Neolithics and the Paleolithic time periods. We're going to talk a little bit about the significance of the discovery of fire, as well as what it would have been like if you were Paleolithic versus what it would have been like if you lived in the Neolithic era. All right.